Hey guys, what's up? Sando here. Today I'll be reviewing a huge DAC preamp and headphone amp combo called Audio GD D28. You might have heard about them. They are crafting anything really in the analog and digital domain. So from simple DACs to headphone amp units to big and heavy integrated amplifiers and monoblocks. So I don't know if you remember, but in the early days of headphone listening, thanks to the likes of Audio GD, Headroom, Headamp, AMB Labs, balanced headphone drive became the new trend and the new driving force in the headphone movement. So I still remember the long discussions that I had, what is the best balanced headphone amp in the world, and the fight would be always between the Master 9 from Audio GD, AMB Beta 22 or Headamp GSX. So being curious by nature, I've beaten that apple, and soon our first generation of Master 9 was sitting on my table. Planar magnetic technology, although old, was just at its infancy, paving its way for the road ahead. When the likes of OTC, Hi-Fi Man and the rest of the planar mafia hit the market, nobody was prepared for that, not even Audio GD. Those ones demanded only very huge current swings, very big power reserves, that current production headphone amplifiers just didn't have and didn't possess. The humongous or the extra large Master 9 from Audio GD was mostly tuned for large dynamic headphones like Sennheiser HD800, Beyerdynamic T1. When my long love affair ended with the HD800 and T1, and planar magnetic headphones conquered my playlist, I needed to move to another amplifier that would make them again jumpy and really fast, so Master 9 just needed to go. I still remember it, and I had only good memories about it. Moving on to D28 that we have today, I will skip the unboxing part since the unit itself is really large and I don't know if I can capture everything on camera. But I will just mention that it is coming with lots of foam inside for extra protection. It comes with a power cable, with a USB cable, with 2 remotes, that's right, 2 remotes, not one, and 10 replacement fuses in case the one inside will burn. So there isn't a user manual inside in the package, and if you think you need one, please check its official website under the user manual tab. Okay guys, so moving on in terms of design and build quality, I think it looks really big and really imposing. So far this is the biggest DAP preamp and headphone amp unit that I have tested of late. It is more deep than wide, and at about 5 kilos it is not really lightweight for a desktop unit, but not extremely heavy either. I think it looks fine. It is more industrial looking than hi-fi to me. I'm glad that Audio GD changed the raw aluminum bolts on their black units with black ones. It is much more elegant this way, I think. It has rounded edges on every corner, so you would not cut yourself with it, and even operating some headphones near it shouldn't be a problem. Underneath the display assembly, an R-core transformer is located. It dissipates a lot of heat, so I strongly don't recommend putting something on top of it, especially on those elongated holes that are pushing air out of the unit. I think it looks built to height standards, that thick anodized aluminum should protect it from accidental damage. I do like its simple but efficient fit that should absorb those nasty vibrations. There is one thing that triggers my OCD though. A black unit should have black buttons and the volume knob should be also black. This is nitpicking from my part really, but I would like Audio GD to offer full black units. It would look classy and almost invisible for the cat eyes of my wife. In terms of controls, it is clear to me that we are dealing here with an audio engineer than with a designer when both headphone outputs are using a locking type headphone jacks. It has a single-ended 1/4 inch jack and a 4-pin XLR jack on the front. And you also can find 3 buttons. One is changing the input, one the gain setting, and another one switches it from the DAC mode to preamp mode and then to headphone mode. On the back it will offer 4 digital inputs as USB, I to S via HDMI, optical and coaxial. There are 2 analog RCA and XLR inputs and 3 analog outputs coming in RCA, XLR and AC/CC flavors, just in case you want to use it as an independent preamp or headphone amp. This unit has probably the most crowded back panel that I've seen of late. It has so many inputs and outputs, it is looking incredibly versatile in this regard. In terms of tech specs, we are dealing here with a fully discrete, fully balanced DAC, preamp and headphone amp that is working most of the time in Class A. From input to output, the signal is always balanced if you are using the XLR outputs. You can be sure about that as I followed the signal path myself and I counted all the transistors and all the MOSFETs. I spotted 4 Toshiba transistors per channel, meaning 8 transistors in total, meaning this is a 100% balanced signal and a very ballsy one too. I see it using tens of GRC caps, lots of audio grade Nover caps too, a huge shielded R-core transformer with a very good robust power filtering stage, and at the heart of the digital processing, a desktop grade ESS 9038 Pro DAC chip will do the heavy lifting. It seems to be passively cooled with a heatsink radiator, which is really nice. Around it I see a high-performance Accusilicon femtosecond clock. On the digital input board I see an Atmel FPGA, another programmable Xilinx FPGA, and 2 expensive but really advanced Crystal clocks. From my point of view, this particular D28 is having all the bells and whistles a high-performance and expensive unit should have. As a headphone amplifier, it will pump almost 10 watts in 25 ohms, that's really a lot of power, or 0.6 watts in 600 ohms on the balanced output, or 3.6 watts in 25 ohms, or 0.2 watts in 600 ohms on the single-ended output. Some very serious power underneath that hood. It should move and control those drivers pretty easily. Let's check that out. In terms of sound performance, I'll just mention that this is the second DAC preamp and headphone amp combo that works in class A, and it moves to AB about halfway on the volume knob. And the second unit that I'm talking is the Barson Conductor 3 that goes for $1,800 US. And while listening to D28, an idea never really left my mind that both units are sounding very close to each other in terms of tonality, like twin brothers. So I think that D28 has a very high density type of sound, very rich, very full bodied. It always wants to grab my attention. And if you plan on using the D28 while you're working, I think that will not work at all. It always wants to impress the listener. It always wants to show all its best tricks, like, hey, look how big is this soundstage, or hey, look how deep is this note can go, or how controlled is this bass riff, or how clear is this cymbal crash. D28 is somehow easygoing, detailed, even past top octave, without making me clench my teeth. So D28 is very much like that, and I hope it is not just the honeymoon period with it. D28 has a warm tonality that works extremely well with this particular chipset, I mean the ES9038. That in turn is adding other traits to the table, like speed, like impact, like a very high detail retrieval. And I think that the overall package of all discrete transistor-based circuit, that class A output stage, and that extremely fast and airy and detailed DAC chip did real wonders in this 5 kilo package. So it is not just a great part selection. While listening to it, I feel that this is a perfectly balanced and matched system that is neither too warm or too dry, neither too slow or too fast. First, I tested it with very sensitive IEMs that will show the noise floor of any amplifier, be it portable or desktop. So out of all those 9,500 milliwatts of power, only one is needed to drive them to the ear bleeding levels of 110 decibels. So obviously extra care is needed while handling them. And I connected them to the quarter-inch headphone jack. I selected the low gain. That makes my IEMs much more manageable because the volume doesn't rise way too fast. There is a faint but barely audible noise on the low gain and on the high gain, and luckily it is not increasing in intensity while I'm raising the volume. I tried powering the D28 with 2 passive power conditioners, but sadly those didn't solve my issue and the hum can still be heard. With all that said, D28 was not developed for such very easy loads for these hypersensitive IEMs. So this mostly was an experiment from my part. In case you actually want to use it with IEMs, I actually have a very easy solution for you that will solve all your hum problems by the name of iFi Audio Earbuddy, or even better, IEM Match. So just attach it to the quarter-inch headphone jack, put an adapter, and just forget that you ever heard any hum on this unit. No other tricks are really needed, and it should even work with your very sensitive dynamic headphones, like for example the Focal Stelia, that is notorious for picking the noise floor of an amplifier. As for the volume position, I was at about 40 out of 100, and I was comfortably driving all my IEMs with amazing control, really good speed and slam. As for sound, with IEMs, I think that D28 sounded extremely precise, very linear and very honest sounding. It provided an extended frequency response. I observed that the low intensity bass notes started somehow pulsating, Sub bass was just impressive in terms of quantity and quality with electronica. So D28 can move huge amounts of air in an instant and fill the room nicely with it. I think that pinpoint imaging and the placement of the notes around the room is just very accurate and precise. Stage goes far and wide. Honestly, the hum was the only issue that I had with IEMs. Sort that out and D28 is sounding like a very serious piece of equipment. Using it with full-size headphones, first on the test bench was the fun-sounding Quadira 1, and using a 4-pin XLR cable and enabling the high gain, volume-wise I was somewhere between 50 and 55 volume-wise depending on the song. And for a headphone of this caliber, I think that halfway the volume says a lot about the power reserve of D28 and of its huge headroom that is left on tap. So moving on to the XL-sized resistive Phobos, I switched to single-ended mode, still waiting for a balanced cable to be delivered, and I could raise that volume up to 60 out of 100. And weirdly enough, this largest headphone from my stable needs less power to be driven to its fullest potential. So obviously it was fully driven to its maximum potential. Those big 106mm drivers are easier to drive, but they are harder to control because a larger driver surface might have issues with speed and control. And I think that D28 offered that too in spades, and Phobos were sounding really fast, pumping a lot of positive energy. I never heard a loose sounding beat on them, and I think that a warmer presentation of D28 actually made Phobos much more enjoyable in the long run. This is a very good pairing in my book. Moving on to Hi-Fi Man area, I switched back to balanced connection and I could raise the volume to about 65. They were fully driven to their maximum potential, obviously, with a huge power reserve left on tap. So Aria for the moment is the most linear and straight as a line headphone from my stable. And I think that D28 infused a bit of joy and a bit of soul, especially in the bass and the mid-range area. So it made them more enjoyable to listen, the life in them awakened somehow, and I was just hearing a wider soundstage than usual with them, compared even to my reference benchmark HPA4. So soundstage level on the Aria is normally very tall but not very wide. This is one of the biggest issues of the Aria. And attaching them to the D28, I felt that the sound is somehow expanding in all directions, especially on the balanced output, and Aria is just not sounding inside my head anymore. So Aria had probably the best matching of them all with the Audio GD unit. It solved all the shortcomings that I had with them, meaning a tall soundstage that is not very wide, that linear bass and mid-range. In terms of transit response, overall it is sounding good. It is changing depending on the music, so it will be slow and gentle with jazz and acoustic music, and it will increase its pace with faster beats. I do think that it pairs absolutely great with the internal ES9038 Pro DAC chip that is adding a bit of speed and impact. It will sound great connected to faster sounding sources, just in case you want to use with external DACs for CD players. However, I do think that it will sound slower and laid back with an R2R ladder DAC, maybe even with R2R creations from Audio GD. So D28 is really on the edge of what I consider normal to faster paced sounding. It will be fast but not too fast, for example how THX designs are sounding. I strongly recommend using it with its internal DAC section or with a faster sounding source. There is also an R27 and R28 that are using R2R resistor ladder DACs instead of these ones that are using Delta Sigma ones, and I'm sure that those will have a slower pace, a mellower sound and a laid-back presentation by comparison. So just pick your poison accordingly to your musical preference. If you enjoy a mellower and a relaxed presentation, then I think R27 and R28 will make more sense for you. Otherwise, D28, this one, and a higher performance version of it, D27, will fit the bill nicely. In terms of frequency response, D28 is what I'd call an extended sounding DAC and headphone amp unit. It is amazing, especially in the sub bass and the mid bass, and the same can be said about its mid-range performance. So possibly just by a hair its mid-range and its mid-bass can be considered elevated, that creates this full-bodied, that meaty, natural feeling. So my usual bass tracks revealed information as low as 20 Hz. It rumbles hard, it hits you hard too. So it infuses just a bit of soul into your music, and it will pair absolutely incredibly with linear sounding or with bright and harsh headphones. So Phobos and Aria are extended even past top octave, and that can be tiresome in the long run because of that. But D28 is not making them bright or unbearable, it is making them manageable, calming the top end without stealing too much presence in that region. Treble is good, I have nothing to reproach. It just took a step backward to let those low and mid tones shine brighter than others. Yes, it is a bit warmer sounding, it moves tons of air around it, it has a heavier tone, and it is very reminiscent of Class A and all discrete amplifiers that I have listened in the past. Going on into the conclusion, when I received the D28, I was hoping to hear a small percentage of what Master 9 delivered, but with a small increase in speed and impact. I was partially right about its transients that were faster compared to my older unit. Its slam improved as well, and even driver control improved a lot in the process. But I was really wrong about the small percentage, because in reality it delivered a lot more than I expected. So the warmth was still there, the huge soundstage didn't run away, depth and pinpoint imaging was as good as it can be. Frequency response was right up my alley, brightness was nowhere to be found. In terms of power reserve, this is a very easy one, so it is more powerful than the Borsam Conductor 3 reference, and as a result it just took the first spot as the most powerful unit that I had put on the test bench. So just gobs and gobs of power with huge power reserve that has a big headroom left on tap. All that power would be nothing without refinement and finesse, and D28 provided a lot of that too. When I think that everything that I mentioned is less than $1,000 US, it makes a very easy recommendation compared to a lot of other units. So the fully upgraded unit can be purchased for $850 US by accessing the official webpage, and if you are an European resident, I strongly recommend buying from Magna Hi-Fi by following the links that I put below. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. My full in-depth review is waiting on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and thank you for doing that. And as usual, listen to my music, be positive, and I'll see you soon. Cheers guys, bye bye.